Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel on Property Talk with Liverpool. Recently, you must have heard the great take-up rate of all the new launches. And I'm sure if you have watched my previous video about the market sentiments, you would also have noticed that we are actually experiencing low supply right now. So for this new development which we will be talking about, known as Lentor Central, the biggest question is this is the 6th launch within the Lentor area. And a lot of them are actually asking me, is it really worth it for me to buy Lentor area? Because we are certainly maybe going to see an oversupply situation in 2028 onwards. So today, let's look at Lentor Central. It is really a project that you should consider buying, whether it's for investment or whether it's for own stay. I hope that this analysis can help you to make some sound decision. But before we start, this is a bit of disclaimer. Everything that we have analysed in this video are purely based on personal perceptions and analysis based on facts and numbers. So if there's any question that you feel in this sharing that you do not understand, please feel free to ask me, and then I hope that this can allow you to make some sound decision. But if anything that you are not clear, I strongly encourage you to double cross-check with me first. Let's take a look at where Lentor Central is located. From here, you can notice that Lentor Central is located right beside Hulot Green. And in front of Hulot Green is this project known as Lentor Modern, which is the very first mixed development in Lentor area. So behind Lentor Modern, you can notice that Lentor Hills is the second development, followed by Lentoria and also Lentor Mansion. And today we are going to take comparison for Lentor Central versus Lentor Mansion because these two are actually the harmonized projects. And for your information, if you are not aware, for Lentor Central alone, although it's the 6th development in Lentor area, there's still going to be 4 more plots that are coming up. So it's actually quite exciting to know how will Lentor collection be in the near future in 2027 to 2028 onwards. Because it is very rare to see a site with so many new launches all happening back to back at the same time. We are really not sure whether the take-up rate will be sufficient when it goes into resale market. But what we can be sure as of now is that even though there's a lot of developments here, the projects here are still moving very well, and most of them are already crossed 70% sold or even up to 80% sold already. Not to even mention Lentor Mansion that is sold at the first launch about close to 90%. For those of you who are thinking of upgrading from where you are at right now, perhaps you're upgrading from Bishan, you're upgrading from Ang Mo Kio, or maybe even upgrading from Hougang to Lentor area, the good news is that from where Lentor is, it will only take you approximately 15 minutes to reach the next interchange known as Stevens MRT, which is also an interchange for a downtown line. It will take you around 25 minutes to reach Orchard, which is a rare find because from Ang Mo Kio to Orchard, you also take about the same time. So this Thomson East Coast line is also a very efficient line to help us get to town faster, and it will only take you 30 minutes to go to Outram MRT, which is the 3 interchange that you'll be seeing, Northeast Line, the Green Line, as well as the Thomson East Coast Line. And all of us should be aware at this point of time, the developers of Lentor Central is from Guaco Land, from Hong Leong, and also from CSC. For those of you who have been following Lentor area, you would have noticed by now that Guaco Land seems to colonize a major part of Lentor area. The first one is Lentor Modern, it's also a Guaco Land project. The second one is Lentor Hill Residences, and the third one is Lentor Mansion. So now they are also coming in to do Lentor Central, which some of us may be thinking, with Guaco Land taking over most of the market share in this area, there could be a potential chance that the price appreciation over here could be very well controlled. A little more information about Lentor Central. Lentor Central is a 477 units project. It is going to TOP no later than 2030, which means to say as of now we are sitting at 2025. If about 3 to 4 years construction, you should expect key collection somewhere around 2028 to 2029. And since there's not a lot of units there, what are the types that are available for these projects? From here, you can notice that there are actually a good well spread of 1-bedder all the way to 4-bedder. Yes, there is no 5-bedder for this development. And if I summarize this onto here, you will realize for 1-bedder and 1 bath, there's only 55 units. And for 2-bedder, 2 bath, there's 210 units. 3-bedder, 2 bath, there's 106 units. 4-bedder, 2 bath, there's 53 units. And also 4-bedder, 3 bath, there's 53 units. The next question we want to know is what are the different type of layouts available? and also with all this layout, which is our top choice. Stay on longer to find out. Now, big question here. Developer pricing strategy. We all want to be aware of how is developer going to do their pricing strategy, given that all the launches outside are moving very well and you now know there is shortage in supply. Will developer be more greedy in the way they price this development? The good thing is that after some deep analysis, we noticed that the developer pricing strategy for Lentor Central could be adopting a medium to moderate approach. Medium to moderate approach meaning the developer may not price up too much in terms of what they are going to ask from. To take reference into how developers do their pricing strategy, we're going to take reference to Lentor Central as compared to Lentor Mansion. Now, why Lentor Mansion and not others? Because the rest in Lentor area are all pre-harmonized projects, which means the aircon latch and all these are included inside. And for Lentor Mansion, since it's a harmonized, we are fully aware that developer has lesser 6 to 8% of saleable areas, which is similar traits as Lentor Central. Next, since Lentor Mansion's land break-even price and Lentor Central is similar at 1007 range PSF, we believe that the developer's pricing strategy could also be quite similar. And lastly, the developer is the same. Both of them are both Guaco land. Let's look at the type distribution for both developments. How different are they? For Lentor Mansion, there seems to be no one bidder, which means Lentor Mansion only has 2 bidders, and also 3 bidders and 4 bidders. This is quite similar with Lentor Central, except that Lentor Central has additional 1 bed 1 bath of about 55 units. In terms of the percentage of unit mix, Lentor Mansion has 40% weightage on 2 bedder, whereas for Lentor Central is also similar with 44% of 2 bedder. As for 3 bedder, Lentor Mansion has about the 36% weightage, whereas for Lentor Central is slightly lesser in terms of weightage, is about 22%, mainly because they also open up to 1 bed 1 bath. And lastly, for 4 bedder, Lentor Mansion has 14% of 4 bedders, and then for Lentor Central, there's about also 22%. Now, for 5 bedder in Lentor Mansion, is a rare find in Lentor area because we don't have a lot of 5 bedder supply. For Lentor Mansion, is about 8%. Today's video, we will not be looking at 5 bedder because Lentor Central does not have. Now take a look at this price range for Lentor Mansion, because now we are talking about developers' pricing strategy. And we want to take reference on what is the lowest possible 2 bedder that is transacted in Lentor Mansion and the highest as well as the average, and so on for 3 bedder and for 4 bedder, in order for me to better advise you on what will be the price matrix for Lentor Central. For Lentor Mansion 2 bedder, their lowest transacted starts from 2,156 per square feet, which is around 1.137 in quantum. And the highest transacted for their 2 bedder range from 2,476 per square feet, which is around 1.578 million transacted. How about the 3 bedders? The 3 bedders lowest is 2,001 per square feet at 1.7 million quantum, as well as up to 2,450 per square feet at up to 2.425 million. As for 4 bedder, you have seen 2,158 per square feet at 2.6 million lowest transacted, and highest transacted at 2,380 per square feet at 2.9 million. With this range that you have just seen, we will be taking this into our Lentor Central to give you a gauge on how much you should be entering at. And why is it that there could be a chance that your quantum might be slightly lower than Lentor Mansion? Now let's take a look at a comparison between Lentor Mansion's transactions and potential projection of the prices in Lentor Central. We're going to start with 2 bed 2 bath. With Lentor Mansion, you may notice their size is 527 to 657, and their lowest transacted is 2,001 to 2,004 per square feet. Of course, their quantum is 1.13 to 1.578. Now, question is, will Lentor Central be lower or higher than Lentor Mansion? Because when we are looking at Lentor Central's floor plan, we notice that their 2 bed 2 bath is around 678 to 797 square feet. So in this context, it seems that the 2 bed 2 bath are significantly bigger in size than Lentor Mansion, and since both of them are harmonized, it's a very good comparison. So earlier, I also mentioned in my previous video in Park Town that one of the ways developers are doing their pricing strategy is that if their floor plates for the bedroom types are larger, their per square feet might be lower. As such, let's apply this understanding to Lentor Central, because you may see that it's 678 to 797 square feet. That's why we predict the PSF starting from could be at 2050, and that will amount to a quantum of 1.389. Now, we also feel that if developer price their PSF too much higher than what is transacted in Lentor Mansion, the take-up rates for Lentor Central may not be well, and I'm sure this is the last thing on developers' mind, that their product may not move well. So for one bedder in Lentor Central, since there's no competitor in Lentor Mansion, even for one bed, one bath, you already start seeing that their size is 463 to 581 square feet. This means that their one bed, one bath size is almost equivalent to their two bed, one bath kind of size, which later on you'll be looking at a floor plan comparison, you will realize that it's actually very efficient. And for this, since the floor plate is smaller, we think that the per square feet starting from could be from 2002 onwards, and that will amount to about 1.018 million onwards. And as for Lentor Mansion, you also realize there are 3-bed, 2-bath sizes, ranges from 786 to 904 square feet for the 3-bedroom compact. This, in terms of size, can be a bit different from Lentor Central, because even for Lentor Central's compact 3-bedder starts from 915 square feet all the way to 1076. So of course, in terms of size, this is also significantly bigger, and that's why for the per square feet, we feel that they could be starting from 2,000 onwards, which will amount to 1.8 million onwards. So I won't be surprised if you may see 1.9 million starting from. But on a conservative note, perhaps developer may start 1 or 2 units at 1.8-ish million. Then as for the 3-bed, 3-bath, developers for Lentor Mansion actually has 990 to 1,023 square feet. So as for 4-bedder in Lentor Mansion, for 4-bed, 3-bath, you may notice that their size is 1,227 square feet. And for the 4-bedder in Lentor Central, you realize that 4-bedder ranges from 1,184 to 1,399, also significantly bigger than Lentor Mansion. That's why we predict that the per square feet may be around 1,009 to 1,950 starting from, which will be around 2.3 to 2.6 million onwards. So in summary, I will want you to focus on the size that you are seeing in Lentor Central and also on the quantum. Because if we use the per square feet as the gauge for Lentor Mansion to apply to Lentor Central, the quantum will become too big for people to feel safe buying from, and that is the last thing from developer. And in terms of investment advice, after knowing Lentor Mansion and Lentor Central's pricing, I would like you to focus on size and quantum, because we cannot generalize on the per square feet that is transacted in Lentor Mansion and apply it to Lentor Central due to the floor plate being significantly bigger. In terms of our investment advice, we will suggest to focus on going in at anything at 2,003 per square feet and lower. Right now, we should be noticing that the average per square feet transacted in all OCR is at 2,002 to 2,003 onwards, and that's a norm. So to be safe, 2,003 PSF and lower is safe to enter. Let's look at our one-bedroom analysis. For one bedroom, earlier I mentioned to you that our one-bedder starts from 463 square feet. So what is the difference in terms of the layout? On my left is one Type 1A, on my right is Type 1B. Both of them are 463 square feet, and there are 26 units for Type A and 27 units for Type B. So for Type A, you may realize that it's actually facing the pool and outwards towards the future plot of land. And for Type B, is over here, it's also facing future plot of land. In terms of layout, I do not see a significant difference. So let's look at the possible price matrix. Before this, I was sharing with you that anything at 2003 and below is worth it. So if a developer is going to launch this Type 1A at 2003 per square feet, you should be expecting this one bedder at 1.064 million. So I won't be surprised if you eventually, with the higher floor, you may notice it may transact up to 2,450. But nonetheless, for a one-bedder with such an efficient layout, you may notice 2,003 per square feet is a very sweet spot for most of us to enter in at 1 million-ish a little. As for their Type C, there's actually only 2 units. One facing the greenery and the other one facing the future plots. Why is it level 1 only? Because higher level onwards, they are all 2-bedder plus study. So this is quite unique layout because there's only 2 options. And we believe that this should be taken up pretty fast because the most important thing you notice is that they actually have enclosed kitchen. As compared to this one, they have open kitchen over here. So type 1A and B have open kitchen, whereas type C has enclosed kitchen and there's only 2 units. Therefore, we believe that these 2 units might be one of their premium pricing. I think your entry price for a 581 square feet for these 2 units should be something sitting about 1.2 million, about 2,002 per square feet, probably 1.2, 1.278 range. And also do bear in mind that because it's 581 square feet, not only do you have a kitchen space, you also have an additional study room of 5 square meter. So this is a 1 bed plus study, but for some families that have young children, they may also consider this layout because the study room is actually quite good. 5 square meter can fit a baby cot or a single bed can be converted as a helper's room. How about the 1 bedroom supply in Lentor area? You know the biggest problem that people is saying is that we are not too sure whether 1 bedder is worth it to buy or not. And if someone is buying for 1 bedder, the big question is rental yield. So let's look into how many 1 bedder supply do we have around this area. And not only are we going to look at Lentor, we are also going to take comparison with Hougang and as well as Ang Mo Kio, because these are the 2 closest to us and we want to see how are they performing. So let's start with Hougang. For 1 bedroom supply around Hougang, we have filtered based on number of units is 300 units in a development. We have filtered based on year 2000 TOP onwards. We have also filtered within 1 kilometer to MRT. So this is a very close comparison with where Lentor is, because we all know that Lentor area is very close walking distance to Lentor MRT. So after generating all the condos and filtering all the not related condos, we are left with 5 options here. And out of these 5 options in Hougang, we feel that the closest match we are seeing is Florence and Riverfront. Why is that so? Because in terms of TOP dates, you may realize it's only 2023. Whereas for Florida and for Rio Vista and Park Vera, their TOP dates are relatively far away. So in Hougang, we are going to filter down to these 2 options, Florence and Riverfront. So let's take a look at Florence and Riverfront. The number of 1 bedder supply in Florence is 220 units. And the number of 1 bedder supply in Riverfront is 281 units. This development itself has a total of 1,004 units and 1,004 units for both. So in terms of weightage, it's about 15 to 19% for the 1 bedder supply. And size-wise, it's also quite close to our Lentor Central, which is 484 and 463. So how are they performing in terms of rental? From here, you may notice that for Florence residents, although they are 484 square feet, they are still able to rent out at a very healthy rate of 2006 to 2007. And for Riverfront residents, at 463 square feet, which is the same size as our Lentor Central, except that is harmonized, and that's why the efficiency of the space there might be even better. Riverfront is able to rent at 2006 to 2008, which is also very healthy for Hougang area. So how about the 1 bedroom supply in Ang Mo Kio? For 1 bedroom supply in Ang Mo Kio, there's a total of 10 developments that can match what we are looking for, such as a development that has more than 300 units, 1 kilometer to MRT station, as well as TOP from year 2000 onwards. From this, I'm going to filter to only Panorama. The reason why is because the rest of their TOP dates are pretty far away. And we cannot even use Amor Residences because Amor Residence has not started transacting in rental. So by using Panorama, you can notice Panorama is also the closest in distance to Lentor area. And also in terms of TOP date, is not too far. And there's only 95 units with a weightage of 13% of 1 bedder supply in this development. And I really like the fact that their size is 474 square feet, which is quite close to Lentor Central as well. For their rental performance in Panorama, you can notice based on this, their 431 square feet 1 bedder is transacting at 3,000. And for a 474 square feet, is also transacting at 3,000. This means to say that for the same unit type of 1 bedder, their range of rental is similar. So it will not be 431 square feet transacting at 3,000 and 474 square feet transacting at 3,005, because they are the same unit type, they are the same 1 bedder. So the expectation in terms of the tenants is the same as well. Now let's talk about rental yield. So after sharing so many numbers with you about Florence, about Riverfront, and also about Panorama, let's look at how can we relate our understanding to Lentor Central in terms of rental yield. Assuming Lentor Central at 463 square feet at 2,003 per square feet, entry price at 1.064 million, with a rental yield of 3.38%. Why? Because if Panorama with the similar size of 431 square feet is able to transact at 3,000, this will relate to Lentor Central's rental yield to be at 3.38%. And also, assuming Lentor Central, let's say you cannot get the 2,003 per square feet, you eventually have to go in at 2,004 per square feet. At also similar rent of 3,000, you are still able to see a rental yield of 3.17%. Pretty impressive, isn't it? Now, how about the one-bedroom supply around rental? Because what I have mentioned to you earlier is based on their rental records and also taking into perspective onto Lentor Central in terms of rental yield. But we also want to know whether will we have a lot of competitors in Lentor. From here, you can notice these are all the developments in Lentor area, and we also chart down how many one-bedroom do we have in each development, which will amount to 198 units including Lentor Central. With 198 units of one-bedder as compared to a total of 2,421 units, it only forms as 8% of the entire Lentor area for one-bedder. That having said, for those of you who are looking for one-bedder, I'm happy to share with you that the supply in Lentor area for one-bedder is relatively low. That means you may not have too much competitor when you put your unit up in the market for sale and for rent. So earlier we mentioned Panorama is the one that is closest to us in terms of the distance and the rental amount. So with Panorama, their weightage is 13% in terms of one-bedder. They are able to rent it out at 3,000. For Florence and for Riverfront, their weightage is 15 to 19%, averaging around 16%. They are still able to rent at 2007 to 2008. I'm sure by now you're starting to see a bit of relations. The higher the percentage, the lower the rental, right? So for Panorama, with a 13% is renting at 3,000. So the question is, with Lentor area less than 10%, do you think the rental amount can also have potential to be more than 3,000? So let's look at the rental yield summary. I'm still going to use 3,000 on a very conservative note to share with you at which point in our one-bedder will you start realizing your rental yield may be lesser than 3. If you take a look at this chart, you may realize that anything that is at 2,550 per square feet, which will amount to an entry price of 1.18 million, will then give you the 3.05% of rental yield. And anything lower than that in terms of an entry price will all give you rental yield as high as up to 3.5%, as low as 3.05%. So what happens if you buy at more than 2,006 per square feet? This will mean that your entry price will be 1.2 million, and that will start showing signs of lower rental yield at 2.9%. So guys, if you are looking for one-bedder in Lentor area, try to enter at anything 1.2 and below so that you can still enjoy rental yield of 3%. For those of you who by the time you enter the show flat, you realize that the one-bedder that are left is more than 1.2 million already, and you're also not too sure whether is it still safe for you to enter or not, you can always hit me up. I will help you to analyze and see whether is it still worthwhile to go in or not. So last thing is, the lower the quantum, the higher the rental yield. Next question, who will actually be my competitor when I rent or sell? Because the truth is, we may not be holding on to this property for too long. Some of us might be thinking, I just want to go in as my first investment property. I may be thinking after 3-4 years down the road, or maybe 4-5 years down the road, after renting for a period of time, I may want to upgrade, I may want to buy a 2-bedder. And at that time, then I start thinking about who is my competitor. It might be a bit too late already. Why? Because there's no time to react. So I want to help you to analyze who will actually be your competitor, and at this moment as I'm sharing with you, Lentor Mansion is the one closest competitor for you. Why? Again, because they are the first harmonized project and your Lentor Central is the second harmonized project. Anything that is before Lentor Mansion are all pre-harmonized, And of course, their per square feet might be different. Therefore, a close match will be Lentor Mansion. So for Lentor Mansion, as earlier I mentioned, there's only 2-bedder. You then realize, I want to know whether will this 2-bedder become my competitor when I rent or sell. So in Lentor Mansion, it's a 533 units project. There's 2-bedder ranges for 527 square feet all the way to 657 square feet. There's a total of 214 units, which means there's a total of 2-bed, 1-bath in Lentor Mansion. That makes up to 107 units, even though you see 214 here. Half of them is 2-bed, 1-bath. So for 2-bed, 2-bath, there's a total of 107 units, and they make up to 50% of the 214. And the size is 527. And what kind of difference are we going to see? Before I can answer you the difference, let's look at Florence Residences. Why Florence Residences? Because Florence Residences has a very good characteristics that's similar with Lentor Mansion versus Lentor Central. Why? Because they have 1-bedder as well as 2-bed, 1-bath. So for Florence Residences, if you have a look at the highlighted blue ones, the highlighted blue ones are their 1-bedder at 484 square feet, as you may know by now. And the ones in beige, which is over here, are the ones that is 2-bed, 1-bath. Their 2-bed, 1-bath is 635 square feet. And in terms of rental, generally for their 1-bedder, their rental is as low as 2,006 all the way to 3,001. As for the 2-bed, 1-bath, their rental is 3,002 to 3,005. So you can now notice that there's some differences in terms of the rental amount that you may see, but the difference may not be too much. So let's bring this into perspective here. These two are the comparison between Florence 1-bedder versus Florence 2-bed, 1-bath. So on the left, you can notice for the 1-bedder, I'm taking into reference for 2 transactions. One on the 10th floor at 474 square feet, transacted at 2,006. And as well as for the 1-bed, 1-bath for 484 square feet, there's a range of transaction from level 2, level 3 to 11th floor and 15th floor. In this comparison, I'm going to use the 11th floor one because the 474 square feet is also at around the same floor range. So you can see it's around 2006 to 2008 with a 10 square feet difference in terms of 1-bedder, in terms of layout, wider entrance, and also slightly bigger in room. Rental difference is $200 per month. And let's bring this to comparing with 2-bed, 1-bath. In terms of 2-bed, 1-bath size from a 1-bed, 1-bath, the difference is 161 to 162 square feet. The plus point is they have 1 extra bedroom. In terms of low floor transactions for 2-bed, 1-bath versus 1-bed, 1-bath is $600 per month for that 1 extra bedroom. And in terms of high floor difference is $800 per month in terms of 1 extra bedroom. So why must you know this? Because today, if you are going to go into Lentor Central with 1-bed, 1-bath, or even a 1-bed plus study, which is the only 2 units once, you want to be mindful that in terms of renting when you're putting up in the market, you may notice that if your competitor in Lentor Mansion is putting up their 2-bed, 1-bath in the market, the difference might be 600 to 800 difference, and sometimes some tenants may take a preference to take up a 2-bed, 1-bath than a 1-bed, 1-bath because of the extra bedroom. So transaction-wise, for 2-bed, 1-bath versus 1-bed, 1-bath, I also want you to know that for Lentor Mansion, they have transacted as low as 1.137 and as high as 1.205. Okay, and there's actually 101 units that are transacted below 1.2 million, ranging from 2156 to 2269 per square feet. You have to know this because today we are going into Lentor Central, potentially 1-bedder, at around the same price. So the risk factor right here is Lentor Mansion's 2-bed, 1-bath entry price versus your Lentor Central's 2-bed, 1-bath entry price can be quite close. And this can be a little risk factor that you want to take note because there's a total of 101 units that has transacted below 1.2 million. And earlier I mentioned to you that 1-bedder, if you're buying at 1.2 and below, you still can enjoy 3% rental yield. But in terms of selling, you want to be mindful that because these people who bought 2-bed, 1-bath and below 1.2, they may be putting up for sale in the market at the same time as you, and you may need to be patient with it because they will need to offload theirs before you can move yours. So this is what I mean by the risk factor. So let's look at the floor plan differences. For 2-bed 1-bath in Lentor Mansion, you can notice that once you enter the kitchen, there's a dining area, it's a dumbbell layout, and there's one bedroom here and one bedroom here. Both bedrooms are the same size and very comfortable. And then the difference in size-wise is a total of 65 square feet. Having said that, when someone is looking for a unit in the market in the resale, they will now toggle between Lentor Mansion's 2-bed 1-bath with only 65 square feet difference. They may get to enter at quite a comparable price as yours. So to bring what I shared earlier into perspective here, let's take a side-by-side comparison with both floor plans, because these two will be in the market during the renting process. So for tenants who are looking for a unit, they may view Lentor Mansion and they may experience open kitchenette here, dining area, a spacious bedrooms for both of them, and a dumbbell layout which is pretty efficient, I must say. And then the entry price is at about 1.2 million and below. Conversely, the tenant will also view your 1-bed 1-bath and realize there's a slightly smaller kitchenette. There's also a master bath here, master bedroom here, and the difference is one lesser bedroom over here. What kind of rental differences are they going to expect is, for a 65 square feet difference, let's take example, low floor is $600 per month difference and high floor is $600 a month difference. A 1-bed 1-bath low floor and a 2-bed 1-bath Lentor Mansion low floor could be both in the market for rent at the same time. And one may see that your 1-bed 1-bath might be able to rent at $3,000 and a 2-bed 1-bath might be able to rent at $3,600. So I want to share this with you because I want you to be aware and mindful that not all tenants might take up the 2-bed 1-bath, but there might be a certain percentage of tenants might go for 2-bed 1-bath instead of yours. So in this context, your rental expectation cannot place too high. I think $3,000 is a good sweet spot, or maybe $3,001 to $2,009, that kind of range. If you're not too sure by then, take a look at how the 2-bed 1-bath are tenanting at that time, and then just discount it a couple of hundreds down, and you should be able to move your 1-bedder for rent. Similarly, for the high floor 1-bedder, if you're buying a high floor 1-bedder, you will also realize the 2-bed 1-bath, they should be renting at $3,008 in the market in due time. And for you to move your 1-bed 1-bath, something at $3,000 should be an acceptable range. This will also give you some expectation, a clear expectation on what to expect when you decide to price your unit in the market for rent. As I shared earlier, anything at 1.2 million purchase price and below, you will still enjoy 3% rental yield. So anything that is higher than $3,000, if you are able to rent it out by then, will all be bonuses. So after sharing so many things with you, let's summarize everything about the 1-bedder. Firstly, you may now know that because the supply in our 1-bedder in Lentor only makes up to 8%, that will give you a very healthy rental yield of 3% or more if you're entering at 1.2 million and below. And because the square feet is relatively small, it's only at 463 square feet, your entry quantum is very small, and therefore it is quite palatable and quite safe. Lastly, because it's only 8%, you only experience lesser competition during sale. Now, what's the downside? The downside is, if you still recall, there's 107 units of 2-bed 1-bath in Lentor Mansion that can be your competitor. It is not a very significant amount, but there is still going to be some form of challenge, and therefore this will also challenge your sale and for your rent if ever you're going to put it up when TOP. It's not a big problem, but it's something to be mindful about. So that will be our summary for 1-bedder. Let's go on to 2-bedder. I'm sure you're very excited because most of us are looking into 2-bedder for our first home or investment property. So 2-bedder analysis, there's a total of 3 different layouts for 2-bed 2-bath. For 2-bed 2-bath, what is the difference in terms of layout? Firstly, the 2A ones is 678 square feet, the 2B is 689 square feet, and 2C is 678 square feet. In terms of layout differences, you can notice for 2A, right, once you enter, you have a nicer, bigger frontage. That will allow you to have a more spacious dining area. As for 2B, you realize the walkway is slightly more narrow. However, you also want to take note that both of these layouts or even this layout has enclosed kitchen. So this is certainly a plus point for Lentor Central to have enclosable kitchen. And although for 2B, your walkway space is smaller here, it still opens up to a generous living and dining area which makes up of 23 square meter, which is similar to 2A. And lastly, for 2C, which is 678 square feet, what I like is that your master bedroom is 11 square meter as compared to 2A, which is 9 square meter. And generally for the entrance as you enter here, you realize that it's also quite a short walkway, not too narrow. In terms of facing, for 2A, 2A faces pool and future plot. Future plot means the opposite empty land. And for 2B, is also pool and future plot facing, and for 2C is pool and park facing. There's a total of 26, 26 and 27 units for each type. And in terms of layout efficiency, we felt that our top choice will be 2B. Now the reason why is because it is a traditional layout, and in most of the supply in Lentor area, which I'll be sharing with you later on, we noticed that traditional layout supply in Lentor area is extremely low. And talking about selling in future, we're talking about scarcity of supply. In this Lentor Central's 2-bedder traditional layout will be the lesser supply for comparison in the future. What about the price difference? We felt that since we know Lentor Mansion's entry price as compared to Lentor Central, we feel that the entry price you should be looking at will be slightly around 1.4, higher range of 1.4 million, all the way to about 1.5-ish, close to 1.6 million. So at a 1.4 million to 1.5-ish million, you should be able to get something of a 2-bed, 2-bath in Lentor Central with a very efficient layout. Now let's take a look at the layout differences in all the 2-bed, 2-bath in Lentor area. Lentor Mansion on the top left, you can notice 2-bed, 2-bath has a kitchen over here that is non-enclosable. And for Lentoria, we will regard this as not a good competitor because the moment you enter from the entrance, you can see the kitchen is open kitchen and it's a left-right kitchen. So in this context, we will be marking out Lentoria. And for Hilllock Green, we also consider as not a competitor because again, it's an open kitchen. So we're also going to mark this out. That leaves us with Lentor Modern, 2-bedroom flexi with an enclosed kitchen as well. Lentor Hills, 2-bed, 2-bath, enclosed kitchen as well. And Lentor Central, which is the current development, has also enclosed kitchen. So if I just summarize this for you, let's take a look at the layout and their price differences. For Lentor Modern, you can notice their 2-bedroom flexi is a very efficient concept because people are able to use this for their study room or for their guest room or even for a helper's room. So during that time when they were launching, they will call this like a 2-bedroom flexi or a 3-bedroom compact because it really can work this way. And for Lentor Modern, which is the very first development, non-harmonized project launched during that time, their lowest per square feet to highest per square feet can go up to 1.67 million. So looking at the average transaction in Lentor Modern is about 1.51 million. Now remember this average transaction because this will form as an average resale price marked up in the future when you put up your unit for sale. And moving forward to Lentor Hills 2-bed, 2-bath, you can notice that it is also enclosed kitchen, it's a dumbbell layout, and their average transaction is 1.37 to 1.517 million with an average transaction of 1.44 million. So for Lentor Mansion, which is the harmonized one, you can notice that their kitchen cannot be enclosed. Although if you want to, you can try to enclose here by adding the sliding glass concept. But if we're going to be very strict in terms of our comparison, in terms of layout, this will be better comparison and Lentor Mansion should be out because of the kitchen. So lastly, for Lentor Central 2-bed, 2-bath, the layout is also dumbbell layout, enclosable kitchen, very efficient and wide frontage, and also a good sized balcony. So in terms of entry price, because it's 678 square feet, we predict that you should be looking at 1.4 million onwards. Well, for those of you who are hoping for Lentor Central to be at 1.3 million, I think it's going to be quite challenging. Why? Because if you take a look at Lentor Mansion, their average transaction is 1.512 million. And for Lentor Hill, their average transaction is 1.44 million and Lentor Modern at 1.51. So it is actually very less likely that Lentor Central's average 2-bed, 2-bath will be at 1.3. So be prepared is 1.4, likely to 1.5-ish million. So let's take a closer look at these three layouts that I just pointed out to you. For Lentor Hill 2-bed, 2-bath, since we now know that their average transaction is 1.44 and Lentor Modern average transaction is 1.51 and Lentor Central likely 1.4 million onwards, in the future, when you put your unit up for sale in the market, buyers will be viewing all these 3 different layouts. And all these 3 different layouts all offer different benefits to them, with Lentor Modern having the 2-bedroom flexi, which is one of the biggest strong points, plus it's actually a very convenient development with MRT just right below. So this will be your biggest and strongest competitor. But we cannot omit the fact that their entry price is going to be 100 to 150,000 higher than yours. So if you're going to take into perspective, likely for Lentor Modern's average transaction at 1.51, when it's up for sale in the market in this kind of layout, they should be looking at about 1.75 million onwards. So I won't be surprised it's about 1.75 to 1.8 million for a Lentor Modern 2-room flexi in future during the resale. That having said, now as you enter at 1.4 million range onwards, even if you're selling at a slightly lower quantum than Lentor Modern, you should be expecting about 1.6 plus to 1.7 million as a resaleable price. So I think in this context as comparison, it should be quite a safe entry for you. Now let's talk about Lentor Hill. If you look at Lentor Hill itself, you can notice that Lentor Hill's average transaction is 1.44. And this can be very close to your Lentor Central transaction. This will be the closest competitor you're going to have when you put up for sale, because buyers are going to notice that they have a glass kitchen over here, which is very nice for Lentor Hill. But for Lentor Central, you do not have this glass concept there unless you choose the other layout that I mentioned, which is type 2B, the 689 square feet. Okay, if not, you may also notice that for Lentor Hills, their living room space can feel a bit smaller than yours, which is a plus point. It's only at 20 square meter. And for your Lentor Central, it's 23 square meter. That means you have a very generous dining area here and a very generous living area here. That could be one of a good selling point for your Lentor Central. In terms of bedroom size, I would say Lentor Hill might be aesthetically nicer. Why? Because the space for a master bedroom is 15 square meter inclusive of bathrooms. And for Lentor Central, it's quite comparable, about 14 square meter, right? And both of their room size, common room size, is both 9 square meter. So I think significantly, if today you are a buyer, you're going to go into Lentor Hill during resale, you're going to expect a very nice kitchen with glass, yet you're going to see a smaller living room. And if you go to Lentor Central, you will see a very generous living space that opens up to more spacious feeling. But the downside is you don't have a glass kitchen. But frankly speaking, both kitchens are enclosable. I don't see this as a much issue. So as such, your pricing for Lentor Central and Lentor Hills may be comparable at say about 1.6 million to 1.7 million each onwards. Lentor Central will still be able to move because Lentor Hill living room is smaller than Lentor Central. But if you compare with Lentor Modern, I would think that Lentor Modern should move first. Nonetheless, they're going to be 150,000 onwards difference with your sellable price. For investment tips, which is the most important thing that you must know, the safe range for you to enter for Lentor Central is at 1.3 to 1.5 million. That will allow you to sell with very good gains up to 1.7 million. And because it's harmonized with more efficient space, your quantum of entry is also lower. That will also give the buyer some excitement to take up Lentor Central. So total number of 2-bedder supply in Lentor area makes up to 28%. So that having said, why do I select the traditional layout as the top choice? Is because approximately there's 720 dumbbell layouts in these 855 units of 2-bed 2-bath. And there's only 250 of traditional layout that makes up from these 855 units. That means to say the percentage of traditional layout is extremely low. It's only 1/4 of this 28%, which is about 9 to 10% of this. So that means if you put your unit up for sale, the traditional layout will look way more enticing than a dumbbell layout because of lesser competitor. And the enclosable kitchen is also scarce in Lentor, and as well as your better holding power plus better resale value due to the scarcity. How about the 2-bed plus study layout comparison? For 2-bed plus study, their layout comparison, there's 4 different kind of layout. You have 2D, E, F, and G. So these 2D, E, F, and G, their facing can range from park facing all the way to empty land, to inside facing, and as well as the future plot of land. For this, if I'm going to put them side by side, I may omit type 2G. Why? Because it's 786 square feet with a very long walkway over here, and also a very cramped dining space here, which we feel that the space efficiency for this may not be as good as the one before that. And our top choice for these three layouts will be either two. The layout differences as you enter, there's not too big of a difference, but if you scroll in and you take a look, Type 2F will give you a very big space in terms of living room. And in fact, the living room space is the most generous as compared to the other two layout here. So this will be one plus point for the 797 square feet. And in terms of walking space, once you enter from the living room, there's still an enclosable kitchen away from where the rest are, and it goes up to study room with a dining area. And then for the 2E, there's a glass concept over here, which is very good. As mentioned, it makes the whole area feel so much more brighter. The downside is your dining area will be smaller. That's for type 2E. And then for type 2D, is similar with type 2F. And then the dining area is also smaller, living area is also smaller. So in terms of price difference, we feel that for 2-bed plus study, you should be expecting your price to start from 1.6 million to about higher range of 1.7 million. So let's look at our competitor. For competitor check for our Lentor Central versus Lentor Mansion, I want you to take note that because of the size, we are looking at 786 square feet and 797 square feet. The Lentor Mansion has a compact 3-bedder at 786 square feet. So this means to say, when both types are put up for sale in the market, people will take a favor more to look at Lentor Mansion's 3-bedroom compact, because it's the same square feet as compared to your 2-bed plus study. So this may be one thing you really have to take note. And in terms of entry price difference, for Lentor Mansion, their entry price is 1.7 to 1.92 million. That having said, their average transaction is 1.8 million. And earlier I mentioned to you, you should expect your 2-bed plus studies entry price to be about 1.6 to 1.7-ish million. At a 100,000 plus difference, one may be able to go for Lentor Mansion. So that is also one thing that you want to take note. But well, you have no more competitor for new launches for Lentor Mansion because it's already fully sold. So today, if you're going to purchase 2-bed plus study, you need to mentally note that for Lentor Mansion, it's the same size for their 3-bedroom compact, but they have one extra bedroom. Now the good news is, there's only 46 units of such type. That means there's only very low supply, low competitor. So back to 2-bed plus study, if you're thinking of entering it at a safe price, anything at 1.7 range and below is extremely safe. For those 46 units who purchased Lentor Mansion, their averaging transaction is 1.815 million. They should be expecting to sell at 2 million or 2.1 million onwards in the market. For your 2-bed plus study, let's say you enter at 1.7 range, you'll still be able to sell at 1.8 plus to 1.9 million, slightly lower than theirs, and I believe you'll still be able to move the unit because there will be some buyers who do not want to exceed 2 million for their next purchase. So, in summary, our 2-bedder recommendation will be in this sequence. First, go for a 678 square feet 2-bed traditional layout as your priority because of the scarcity of supply. Second, go for your 2A dumbbell layout for 689 square feet if you have to go for a 2-bedder. And in terms of the 2-bed plus study, prioritize 797 because of the large living room. If you sell it in the resale market, people are going to appreciate this space in the living room. You will feel so much more nicer, grander. And lastly, go for 786 square feet. This is the least recommended, but if you have to, this will be the last choice. Let's discuss 3-bedroom. For 3-bedroom, these are the 3-bedder layout comparison. As mentioned earlier, you have one 915 square feet compact 3-bedder, and you also have 1,076 square feet 2 options for your 3-bedder premium. So for 3-bedder compact 915 square feet is facing, pool, and also future plot. And then for the 1076, which is 3B and 3C, it can be inside facing, pool facing, as well as park facing. There's a total of 53 compact 3-bedder for option and 26 units for each type for the 1076 square feet unit. Well, in terms of the layout differences, For the 915 square feet, you may have a smaller kitchen. Living room space is not too far away from your 1076 square feet because it's 32 square meter as compared to your 34 square meter. And also in terms of bedroom, it's still very generous. You still can have 9 square meter for common rooms and 13 square meter for your master room. And I love the fact that your aircon ledge are along your walkway. So that means your aircon ledge will have extra lighting onto your walkway, which means that it won't be wasted because it's quite well lit. And all your bedrooms will have full height window, which is certainly a plus point for a 3-bedroom compact. For a 3-bedroom premium, you may realize that they don't have the walkway with aircon ledge. That means to say this part, right, will be the regular walkway space that you see in most condos. But your kitchen space are still good size, 12 square meter, and it comes with a yard. For 1076 square feet, you hardly see yard. So for this with yard, I would say this is also a good plus point, and the rest is also quite standard. 9 square meter, common room, and also 14 square meter master room is quite okay. Now price point. For a compact 3-bedder, as comparison with Lentor Modern, we are seeing that it should be something sitting around range of 1.8 all the way to about 2.1 million. And as for the 3-bed 3-bath, we should be seeing a 2.1 million of entry price all the way to say about 2.3 million. Maybe for the higher floor, better facing, you should experience up to the higher range of 2.3 to mid 2.4, something around there. Okay, how about the competitor layout comparison? For compact 3-bedder Lentor Central, the layout we are going to compare is with Lentoria and Hillock Green. Now why? Because for the rest of the development in Lentor, there is no comparable similar size compact 3-bedder. So these two developments, Lentoria and Hillock Green, are the closest in size with Lentor Central's 915 square feet. So what's the difference in their layout? Their layout difference is Lentoria actually have a half enclosed kitchen concept. That having said, as compared to Lentor Central enclosed kitchen and Hillock Green enclosed kitchen, we will say Lentoria will not be a good comparison with our competitor. So that leaves us with only Lentor Central and Hillock Green. So for Hillock Green, their bedroom size is 8.6 square meter as compared to Lentor Central is 9 square meter. This means that Lentor Central in the bedroom comparison will be better in terms of the bedroom size. And also they have this walkway extra window for aircon ledge, which is something you cannot find in Hillock Green. I would say that in this comparison, Lentor Central will be better and more efficient in terms of the layout. Also, you want to take note that for Lentor Central, they have a glass concept kitchen here. So this glass concept kitchen, once you enter, you have this foyer here to enter, which is extra privacy, and then you will be greeted with glass here. That means it won't feel so narrow and cramped because there's glass here, and then the dining area can sit up to a 6-seater. I would say for a 3-bedroom compact, to be able to sit up to 6-seater is very generous and efficient. And as for Hillock Green, if you enter from the living room, you can realize that even though the kitchen is enclosable, there's this space wastage here that you cannot do anything with. So you cannot put a shoe cabinet here because it's a bit awkward. You don't want to put a shoe cabinet outside the kitchen because of hygiene purpose. And if you shift your dining area in the center, it's also going to look very funny. That's why I mean there's some space wastage. And to assess if your Lentor Central is a good buy or not, you try to ensure that your entry range is at 2.2 million and below. Why is that so? Because imagine your Hillock Green, your lowest transacted to highest transacted for a 904 square feet is at 1.79 million, highest at 2.11 million. If your Lentor Central is 915 square feet with a more efficient layout and a bigger floor plate and harmonized, that means everything is within this space that you are usable, something at 2.2 million and below would be a very palatable price for most buyers. So when both buyers are going to view this in the market, Hillock Green is going to sell their property at, let's say, 2.3 million to 2.4 million. And if your entry price is at 2.2 million, even if you are calling for a slightly higher price than Hillock Green, I think people will still take interest in your unit than Hillock Green. So how about the difference between 2-bedroom plus study versus 3-bedroom compact? For 2-bedroom plus study and 3-bedroom compact, if I take a look at this 2-bedroom plus study, you can realize that the square feet is quite different. Why? because this is a 786 square feet or 797 square feet. And for the 3-bedroom compact, it's 915. So it's almost like about close to 180 square feet differences. But if you break it down into the difference of your entry price, the difference could be around 250,000 in terms of from 2-bed plus study to a 3-bedroom compact. So if you are able to see a price difference of 250,000 and realize that your total down payment difference is 12,000 for your 5% cash, and if your CPF has an additional 50,000 to spare for an upgrade, then do consider an upgrade. Because after all, do be mindful that 2-bed plus study is the same size as Lentor Mansion's 3-bedroom compact. So as such, I would strongly encourage you to upgrade to a 915 square feet with a difference of 62,000 increase in your down payment for a proper 3-bedder. So that having said, if you are going in a 2-bedroom plus study at let's say about 1.7 million, and you are able to enter a 915 square feet 3-bedroom compact at let's say around 1.9 million or maybe higher range of 1.8, do open up your options for an upgrade for future better resale value. So let's look at the actual ROI. Let's take comparison with Florence Residence between a 2-bed plus study versus a 3-bedroom compact. For Florence Residences 2-bed plus study, their size is 700 square feet. And for Florence Residences 3-bedroom compact is 893 square feet. And for Florence Residences, if you realize, right, the 2-bed plus study, their entry price was at 1.04 million at that time. Whereas at the similar time frame during that time, the 3-bedroom compact is 1.356 million. And look at the ROI difference. For a 2-bedroom compact, the seller, when they sell, they actually make a profit of 240,000. As compared to a 3-bedroom compact, at the similar time range when they sell, he actually made 324,000. So why is that so? Because if you take a close look at 2-bed plus study, there's always some differences in terms of efficiency in space. And significantly in terms of kitchen for Florence, kitchen is not entirely enclosable, with a study room that can only be used as a helper's room, storeroom, or an additional guest room, or probably a study room. And for Florence, with this proper size bedroom, you may notice that this proper size bedroom comes with also an enclosed kitchen, which is similar with Lentor Central. And the ROI for both are quite similar, but of course when you break down the numbers, one is 200 over 1,000, one is 300 over 1,000. So of course the decision call lies with you, but again, as I mentioned, the down payment difference is 79,000, and to have a higher ROI, if you can, will be advisable. Again, in summary, if the gap for 2-bed plus study is very narrow, do consider a 3-bedroom compact. And conversely, if the gap for 2-bedroom plus study versus a 3-bedroom compact is too far away, let's say it's like maybe 300,000 or more difference, then I guess you can stick back to your 2-bed plus study because it may not affect your resale value by too much. So let's look at our 3-bedroom premium competitor check. For 3-bedroom premium competitor check, we put all the competitors of similar size in this slide for you. You take a look at Lentor Mansion is 1023 square feet, and take a look at this Hulot Green is also 1023 square feet. Lentor Hill is 1098 and Lentor Central is 1076. So as such, Lentor Central has two type of 1076 and Lentor Hill is 1098. Why do I strike off Lentor Mansion and Lentor Hill? Because their size is a bit too small for comparison. So we're going to just use Lentor Hill Residences. If we put Lentor Hill Residences as compared with Lentor Central, here's the difference. When both units are going to be up in the resale market, one may notice Lentor Hill's kitchen and Lentor Central's kitchen are similar size with only 1 square meter difference. And for their bathroom, Lentor Hill is 5 square meter versus Lentor Central is 4 square meter. For this 1 square meter in bathroom, there might be some slight difference because it's more spacious if you can see from the floor plan difference. And then if you take a look at the bedroom, the total size for Lentor Hill is 19 square meter as compared to Lentor Central is a total of 20 square meter. So in this context, actually the bedrooms and the kitchen are very comparable with Lentor Hill, except that the quantum might be smaller. So as for bedrooms, all of them are the same. So let's look at their transaction price. For Lentor Hill residences, you can notice that the lowest transaction is 2.28 and the highest is 2.49. That means that buyers are able and acceptable to pay up to 2.2 to 2.5 million for a 3-bedroom premium in Lentor Hills. Of similar layout to Lentor Central, but a smaller quantum, I believe you should be able to enter Lentor Central at somewhere around 2.3 million. 2.3 million to say about 2.4 million. So the potential price projection should be something around 2.15 all the way to 2.5 with average of 2.3 million. So if you really have chosen a unit at 2.3 to even up to 2.4, I would still think it's a very safe range to go into because Lentor Hills has transacted almost up to 2.5 million already. Difference generally is about a more squarish and wider kitchen with a slightly larger bedrooms and also larger dining space. Other than that, it's not too much of a difference. So if you can, your options at Lentor Central, 2.4 and below is extremely safe. In summary, for those of you who are thinking of buying Lentor Central as investment and do not want to stretch out too much, go for a 915 square feet unit. Why? Because it will have higher ROI as compared to 2-bed plus study, and it's actually a more comfortable quantum for first-timer. Like those who are buying your first home or upgrading for a HDB, I think this layout is efficient and the quantum is good size for you to go into. And for those of you who are buying for own stay, you can consider 1076 square feet and you have sizable layout. You have a yard which is extremely vital and you also have home shelter. So own stay element, go for 1076 square feet. Investment, go for 915 square feet. Finally, let's talk about 4-bedroom. In 4-bedroom, you can realize there's 3 different layouts. 2 of them, 4A and B, at 1184 square feet, with 4C at 1399 square feet, known as 4-bedroom premium. So for the 4A and 4B, they are either park-facing or pool-facing, which comprises of 26 units for park-facing and 27 units for pool-facing. Now, in terms of layout differences, you can notice it's mainly in the walk-in closet. For the 4A type, you have a longer walk-in closet, and for the 4B, it's an L-shaped walk-in closet. And then for the 4-bedroom premium, which is 1399 square feet, is a wide frontage living area, which comprises of 40 square meter, very generous. So for those who like wide frontage and for own stay, I think this layout is perfect. In terms of 4-bedroom premium, you can notice that it's actually longish layout with a wide frontage. And this is exceptionally perfect for those who like spacious and grand feeling. It also comes with Jack and Jill bathrooms and an extra ensuite bathroom and a walk-in closet with an additional store. The storeroom you cannot find in the 4-bedroom compact, and also your ensuite bathroom, it is not found in 4-bedroom compact. So it depends on your family needs. As for entry price, we're expecting it to be somewhere higher range of 2.4 million all the way to 2.7 million. For the 4-bedroom premium, you should be expecting around 2.7 million to somewhere around 3.1 million. Let's take a look at the layout differences between our competitor known as Hulot Green. For Hulot Green, there is 4-bed 2-bath at 1184 square feet, non-harmonized, and for Lentor Central, as mentioned earlier, it is similar size or same size as Hulot Green, except it is harmonized, which means more efficient space. So for Hulot, the main difference is that your walk-in closet for your Lentor Central is not found in Hulot Green. So Hulot Green's bedroom is a typical master bedroom layout, whereas for Lentor Central, they do give you walk-in closet for both of them. And also, for Hulot Green, because it's non-harmonized, you don't have bomb shelter. And in Lentor Central, you have bomb shelter. So in this context, I would say Lentor Central is a more efficient layout than Hulot Green because of the harmonized elements, and the aircon latch is safe up for your extra walk-in closet and for your bomb shelter. How about the entry price? For Hulot Green, their lowest transactor is 2.3 all the way to 2.6 million and averaging about 2.5 million. Therefore, for Lentor Central, we believe that the potential price projection could start from 2.368 or maybe 2.4 up to 2.6-ish million as well, with an average transaction of 2.48 to 2.5 range. Still, as compared to Hulot Green, I do think it's quite a safe amount to go in if our price projection is accurate. Let's take a look at the layout differences between 4-bedroom premium. for 4-bedroom premium, we are taking Hillock Green, Lentor Hills, and Lentor Central as comparison. Why? Because in terms of square feet, for 4-bedroom premium, they are the closest. So Hillock Green is 1346 square feet, Lentor Hills is 1399, and Lentor Central is also 1399. In terms of living room space, Hillock Green is only 4.99 meter as compared to Lentor Hills and Central, one at 5.5 meter and another at 5.35. So in this context, I will say that Hillock Green is not our competitor because of this. And also, if you take a look at the walkway, for Hillock Green, there's some space wastage in the walkway because it's like a L-shaped kind of walkway. And even if you do a shoe cabinet, you can't really do too big of a shoe cabinet because it's quite short over there. In terms of bedroom size, it's only 8.6 meter. And unlike for Lentor Hills and Lentor Central, both of them are 9 to 10 square meter. There's also one small study area there, which you can hardly do anything with for Hillock Green. But their entry price can range from 2.7 to 2.9, which means that in the future, if they're going to sell, they are also going to sell at 3 over million, which is quite comparable with Lentor Hills and Lentor Central. So I will strike off Hillock Green as our competitor. And let's take a look at Lentor Hills. Lentor Hills have a not so squarish balcony space over there. And unlike Lentor Central, it's a very squarish balcony space here. This means that if you want to do a zip track, Lentor Central likely is able to do, but for Lentor Hills, less likely you are able to do a decent rectangular zip track because of this jagged space here. As for the entrance, if you enter from Lentor Hills, there's a very nice bomb shelter over there, alike with Lentor Central as well. Except the walkway is shorter, you can access easier and faster. As you enter, you also open up to this spacious living room here. And bedroom-wise, 9 square meter as compared to Lentor Hill, which is 10. And there's a walk-in closet, which you cannot find in Lentor Hills. So I think the layout comparison is quite close. The plus point is that I would say Lentor Central is more efficient in terms of their space and their layout because you have walk-in closets, you have home shelter right at your doorstep there, and you don't have to walk too far when you come back from the grocery, or you buy your sundries, you can put them in the bomb shelter and it's nearer to you. And kitchen-wise, there's also store and yard. I would say for a family to stay for long term, Lentor Central's layout is pretty efficient. In terms of entry price, we feel that it's going to be very comparable with Lentor Hills, which is at 2.7 million to 2.9 million as well. For Lentor Central, also likely 2.7 to around 3 million-ish. So averaging 2.8 to 2.9 million for Lentor Central's 4-bedroom premium with a more efficient space and more efficient layout. So key question, if today you're buying into a 4-bedroom premium, what kind of ROI are you going to expect? Let's take into reference using Jadescape. Because in Jadescape alone, they have 4-bedroom compact and 4-bedroom premium, and we want to see what kind of difference does it make. For 4-bedroom compact in Jadescape is 1,259 square feet, and for 4-bedroom premium in Jadescape is 1,647 square feet. So for 4-bedroom compact, you can realize that with a same period of holding, both purchased at only 5 days apart and sell at also about 3 to 4 months apart. One has seen 759,000 for the 4-bedroom compact, and another has seen 994,000, almost close to $1 million in terms of their gains. This means to say that in terms of down payment difference, they are looking at 156,000 with a 4-bedroom compact ROI at 139% and 4-bedroom premium at 141%. So again, if you're someone who is looking at long-term holding and do not want to flip your property and want to enjoy the space, you can also notice that 4-bedroom premium can give you better ROI than a 4-bedroom compact. And in terms of layout differences, 4-bedroom premium for Jadescape comes with private lift, and also they have a dry kitchen, unlike 4-bedroom compact that don't have. So if you apply this to your 4-bedroom compact and your 4-bedroom premium, you can notice if in terms of investment, I would suggest you to go for 4-bedroom compact because it's lower down payment and also good ROI. In terms of own stay, go for 4-bedroom premium, hold it for a longer period of time. Although your down payment is higher, your ROI is also equivalently good, or in fact maybe even better. We have come to the end of our Lentor Central sharing. I hope this video has benefited you in being able to choose the right type of unit, layouts, and also be able to expect what kind of pricing are you going to enter in and what is safe and what is not. Of course, I also believe that you may have some questions regarding about this development, and feel free to check out with me if you have something in mind and not too sure how to resolve it. My name is Kelly. See you in my next episode.